Good morning, everybody.
Look at everything in the front. These are the boards right here. This is the team. There's more stuff that we can put out here. Hey, there's 3 picnic tables up here.
Vice Gerber. Vice Gerber paying BLM people. Vice Gerber paying BLM.
Vice Gerber. That's the man's name. The guy with the kind of stringy long hair, shoulder length, and was walking around like looked like he's handing out stuff, huh?
Yeah, this is Vice Gerber. This is the guy that you saw breaking into Nancy Pelosi's office. This is the BLM operative that led the people into the Capitol on January the 6th.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives. And once again, the sound of the ospreys brings us home and nests us here on Mystery Island. Although the ospreys are gone now until the second week of March, they'll be back. Until then, we have quite a nice array of birds here. Lots of eagles, lots of course, shorebirds and seagulls and everything like that. Cormorants. Often see cormorants here, and all the usual land birds that you feed with your backyard feeders. It's a nice place to live if you like to watch birds and ducks and things go by, George.
And speaking of things going by, the guy who works for the Senate Sergeant of Arms just walking by in a previous lifetime. That's where this attack by Vice Gerber was. And we see him, John, going up and down the street paying BLM people, right? And this is the guy who has a CNN, or maybe Jade Sackler wasn't CNN, but he's also caught on a James O'Keefe. Remember, this is the guy who does the January 6th PSYOP, okay? Who's leading the whole charge saying, who's with me, you know, or am I going to have to take it myself? And then dropping a couple of F-bombs, right? People say it's not a PSYOP, it's a PSYOP, right? But now we also have James O'Keefe of the Veritas Project. He's changed his appearance since then, but he also was talking about, as a Bernie bro, entrapping people, Republicans, into these shooting pens, and then sending them to camps.
I'm ready to start tearing bricks up and start fighting. I'm no cop, bro. I'll straight up get arms. I want to learn how to shoot and go train. I'm ready for the revolution, bro. Guillotine the red. So can we just seize? Can we just dissolve the Senate, House of Representatives, the judicial branch, and have somebody like Bernie Sanders and a cabinet of people make all the decisions for the climate? I mean, I'm serious. Yeah. What will help is when we send all the Republicans to the
re-education for Republicans.
Oh God, he wouldn't survive in Lindsey Graham. Gulags are founded as re-education. Right. The first gulag that was open, have you heard about the Bellamore Canal? People came from America to work on the Bellamore Canal for the Soviet project, the communist project. Wow. Beautiful name. And the gulags became a lot more political as they went on. It was a tool. It's like a boogeyman. You know what? We have more people in prison in this country right now than Russia did at the height of the gulag. We do. That's a fact. I only learned this in college when I started studying the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was not horrible. No, it wasn't. I mean, for women's rights, the Soviet Union is, I think, the most progressive place to date in the world. Leave it to the Soviets to make the most badass, most effective gun in the world. Engineering, great. The destroyer of imperialism and colonization. I mean, everywhere. That's why I want to get it tattooed on me. I'll straight up get arms. I want to learn how to shoot and go train. I'm ready for the revolution, all right?
There he is, John, Mr. Vice Gerber.
Whose video did we just watch?
James O'Keefe of the Veritas Project. You might know Ann Vandersteel worked for James O'Keefe, and you're familiar with James O'Keefe, right?
No, I'm not, and I'm not familiar with Project Veritas.
Have you seen these different videos maybe on people that do these hidden cameras for like Planned Parenthood, they're known for secret hidden camera type interviews of these different people.
It sounds like the guys that go through houses and find ghosts and things, I mean, is it sketchy or is it?
No. James O'Keefe's a pretty straight up journalist, I would say. I'm trying to think of some other. Andy, which ones?
A couple of people high up in Google and stuff.
Andy's putting some things up, some graphics up.
The one that did the undercover breaking news where he somehow got into the CNN executive producer meeting.
Right, with Mark Zucker or Zucker. Jeff Zucker.
Actually, I guess.
Yeah, bring up that just so you can see Project Veritas's kind of portfolio for those who aren't familiar with it.
Hey, Jeff. He also did the story like last year about Ilhan Omar ballot trafficking, suspected for ballot trafficking.
Yeah, he's not like Laura Loomer, which is kind of like wacky. He's straight up news. When you say, I mean, he's
definitely got good stuff.
He this is him. Just
you there? Hey, this is James O'Keefe. We've been listening to your CNN calls for basically 2 months, recording everything. Just wanted to ask you some questions if you have a minute. Do you still feel you're the most trusted name in news? Because I have to say, from what I've been hearing on these phone calls, I don't know about that. I mean, we got a lot of recordings that indicate you're not really that independent of a journalist.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. So everybody, in light of that, I think what we'll do is we'll set up a new system and we'll be back with you. We'll do the rest of the call a little bit later.
We're going to release those recordings today at 7 o'clock. So stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. So you just heard me talk to the president of CNN, Jeff Zucker, and inform him that we are going to release a number of recordings today. I unmuted myself into the conference line, and they're still on there. They're listening to me right now. This is being live streamed for those of you still on the call. And we've recorded for a while, and we have clips of various producers talking, the president talking, describing their motives, describing their political philosophy, describing how they don't cover certain things, and certain political parties tell them to cover things a certain way. Lots of little clips that takes us into the minds and hearts of our people, powers that be, that inform us, because government is downstream from media. So we're going to be releasing these tapes thanks to one of our sources. One of our brave insiders has given us this information. And as you can see, they're still milling about on the call. They're listening to me right now. They have to, quote, change their system and get a different.
That's good. So John, gives you a little bit of a feel.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like he's a courageous critic of the mainstream news. So how does that play out with what the earlier video you shared?
Yeah, so he pays these people to go undercover and act like gains their confidence to play to get them recorded to show their real self, the real story versus the fake. And what he's showing with this Vice Gerber guy is this Vice Gerber is not who he seems to be. He's not a patriot. He's not going in saying, who's with me? I'll do it by myself if people don't come with me. And and he's the one going in and smashing things. He's the one going in with the gas mask, telling people go in there and steal stuff so this is entrapment of the first order. I mean, you basically have a person saying, who's with me, who's with me, who's with me. And then, leading people into a shooting pen. Then we find out, oh, wait a minute, he's not a patriot at all. He's out paying BLM people to do the same thing, this is, we're gonna not take the 74 million Americans' justifiable concern over election fraud, because now those people who went to Washington, D.C. are white supremacist terrorists. They're not common everyday citizens interested in the integrity of elections to see how their senator is going to vote. They're white terrorists that need to be put in education camps. So all of those 74 million people's vote is going to be nullified and disenfranchised because one paid actor went in and encouraged a couple of idiots to go into Nancy Pelosi's office. That's why we're going to have the re-education camps. That's why we're going to have the gulags to build pipelines for the rich. Maybe we'll call it the citizen journalist pipeline. But really, we're seeing 74 million people being disenfranchised because one guy, really, one guy, maybe two, maybe the James Earl Sullivan kid, but he's an Antifa guy. So we've got lockdown. We got, some people say as high as 35,000 people in the Capitol right now, soldiers. We got lockdowns in every state capital. We may never see our state capitals again as public citizens. This may be green zoning our state capitals. So this is all because of this one guy taking money from whoever he works for, Jeff Zucker, or I don't know who he works for, but because of one paid actor, all this change.
Yeah, it's stunning. Yeah, George, I have to confess, I just can't watch the mainstream media. I get queasy when I look at it now. And these films that we're seeing that Andy's sharing are just terrifying to me. Did you, by any chance, we've been opening a channel over on Brighteon, and I wonder if you had a chance to read or listen to Mike Adams's latest.
No, tell me about it.
Well, he's sounds like his main point is that he's talked to some people and he can't say exactly what he heard, but suddenly he's extremely happy and feeling like he's in a really good mood because good things are in store. And then he goes on to actually speak about one of your main points of investigation, and that is the weapons contained in container boxes, Club K. So he refers to Club K and the appearance of a number of containers just around the country that weren't there before. Also, the deployment of Patriot missile systems and indication that he feels that this deployment is actually going to be for the purpose of military tribunals of the traitors. And that's his report today. So it's quite astonishing to find somebody like him still having the kind of hope and still exuding the faith in Trump that most people have. I've been trying to go with you, George, and think, it's too obvious. It's the 10th Mountain Division. It's Petraeus. It's the 27th. They're the ones from Kosovo. How could it not be an occupation force? That's the way I view it. But it's very interesting that Mike Adams takes a very opposite view in terms of what he's expecting.
Yeah. Well, it just shows how you can be really close and how intelligence can overlap and help you complete the mosaic. I mean, you can have a whole bunch of people doing a family group puzzle and agree about 99% of the puzzle, but there's one or two pieces that one person thinks should go over here and one person should thinks go over there. That's the difference between me and Mike, right? He says the containers went to Denver and Costco and all this stuff. I agree with all that stuff. I just disagree with, and God knows nobody did more about the Club K with Ross Perot export and the whole thing, and went to Cape Canaveral. I can't count how many times, Port Canaveral, and it's the Lockheed 1101 missile and 9 years in DARPA and all that. I mean, I know this thing backwards and forwards, right? But what, unfortunately, these things are deployed as military assets that are vitally needed in case of insurrection. And they have chemical rounds in them, they have biological rounds in them. And it's not, Trump is not deploying these. These are being deployed, unfortunately, by the authorities of JTTF as an adjunct to the DHS, and these decisions are made at Fort McNair. When Trump signed the insurrection order, or on the 9th for DC, it activated a unit in the Navy that can throw this plan into action. And so this is the MABNY program, and you are seeing the assets being deployed now. But I can assure you that Trump is not deploying the assets. They've cut Trump's communication off completely. They'll be lucky to get an elbow bump out of Trump tomorrow, and then he'll immediately go to Camp Springs on Marine One, and then to Mar-a-Lago. I love Mike to death, but they're feeding him some bad intel. And like I said, we're only disagreeing on one little piece of the puzzle, John. But we've said Club K 40-foot containers were going to be a part of military assets vitally needed when the insurrection order was thrown. Trump threw that switch on January the 9th. And like I said, the only service that allows 50 states to collect reservists in 50 states, making it the nerve center for any kind of putting down any kind of insurrection, is the Navy. It's run out of naval intelligence over there, Fort McNair, and the Commodore is Chief of Naval Operations' office is over in the old Navy Yard by the ballpark. National Defense University has been studying this for 20 years. They've written the plan, Dark Winter, simulation in 2001 with James Woolsey. So I love Mike, I love him to death, but we disagree on this one piece of the puzzle. It's not Trump. It's Trump. It's Trump's executive order being used against him. We'll know tomorrow if Trump does give an elbow bump to Joe Biden at the portico on the South Lawn, and then gets on a helicopter and goes to Camp Springs over to Andrews. Then we're going to know the answer tomorrow at noon.
Yeah. Geez, I'm just so. There's no words for it. I've loved this country my whole life, and I see it turning into a nightmare.
Well, I think the best thing that that patriots can do is, I've always said, we have to be smarter with the pen than they are with the gun. Okay, the pen is mightier than the sword. Only if we're smarter. Our job is to be smarter with the pen than they are with the gun. They're going to always have better guns. They're going to have better bioweapons. They're going to have better chemical weapons. DHS has put all their investment in that. What they fear from us is not our guns. And I've never owned a gun. What they fear is our pen. Watch that. Watch the restrictions there. As long as we're breathing, we can fight with our pen. And we have to be smarter. And that's our job. That's our task. That's our mission now. And John, thank God for your father, because I didn't know what courage was until I read his story. And it's just so inspirational.
Well, George, you're writing his story. You've uncovered so much that I was unaware of. And of course, the connections that we've made during the past couple of years have been tremendous. And now over at the Charette House, we still have our archivists over there working through the remaining boxes that I've delivered. And we're going to have a quite an arsenal of material, George. I mean, I've shown you a great deal, but I haven't shown you anywhere near everything, because it's like one thing at a time, right? So with it getting organized by Deborah and others, it's going to be very worthwhile. And the 50th anniversary of his death is coming June the 6th of 2021. And I want to have something published. I mean, I want to publish something under my name to talks about my father and, his career to my best of my knowledge to expose it, because it's only through seeing what he was, who he was, and what, what happened to him, what they did to him. Let's not use the passive voice, because it was an active health alteration committee that controlled his last years and chose when to let him go. And I have to just have faith. I mean, we were talking yesterday about Martin Luther King Jr. and how he was a man who had an impregnable faith. He had such faith in God and as a Christian in Jesus Christ and the story of the Bible, his death and resurrection. His death and resurrection. That he knew that he could get to the mountaintop, but he might not be among us when we arrive in the valley of milk and honey. So we seem to have taken a few steps backwards in the past few months, but we have to keep on marching, and we have to keep the spirit, that ultimately we shall overcome.
Well, I couldn't agree more, John. And last night your show with Bill Taylor, and people should watch it. He made this incredible connection. This shows you the power of being smarter. It shows you the power of doing the kind of research that we're doing. He connected that McCormick industry, the whole shipping going through Baltimore, and the hiding opium
spices, McCormick spices,
nutmeg, and hiding the opium in paprika and other things that would throw dogs off. And installing Nancy Pelosi's father, D'Alessandro, to make sure that there would be nobody checking those containers at the port of Baltimore. And it's just revolutionary when you give something like that to me, because I've been doing so much up there with Imran Awan and the port of Baltimore and D'Alessandro, and why Nancy Pelosi is in charge of all these operations now. It's because they installed this crime family into politics.
Maryland 3rd, Maryland 3rd congressional district. It's gerrymandered in it's one of the most gerrymandered districts you'll see anywhere. Although we've got some competitors, in the 4th and I think the 5th. But this is the traditional seat through which the Sarbanes came, Mikulski came, and now we have Sarbanes Jr. From that same seat. And he was a client of one of those people whose names we never mention anymore, that sounded kind of South Asian. The one that ran the computers in the House of Representatives. We can't say that.
Okay. Yeah, we can say Imran still.
We can't say that.
Okay.
But remember the list that you had of the congressional representatives that were using the services of said unmentionable South Asian person.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was on, Sarbanes is on the list.
Oh yeah. Oh, I didn't.
So that gives you the connection to your BlackBerry network.
Oh yeah. We charted this. We put out all the data of these rice shipments that would happen every 14 months, massive rice shipments that were happening to the port of Baltimore. Nancy Pelosi is the one who used his name in the WikiLeaks emails to have a closed door meeting and told him to get in there. So it's not me that used the name in WikiLeaks. It's her that used that name in WikiLeaks. It's Debbie Wasserman Schultz that used that name when they couldn't find Debbie Wasserman Schultz's password. So, but this was just an excellent. The point I'm making here is, with a little bit of research and hard work, the crime family that was installed into the Capitol that would run something like this counterintelligence operation, with this guy paying these BLM people and paying, dog walking and all these patriots into her office. You can see why she would go to such lengths, because her birth into the House of Representatives was born on the back of this opium trade. when people ask me who ran Operation Cassandra, I said, well, look at all of the metadata. It's these container ships coming into the Port of Baltimore. I can't count how many times we went down to the Port of Baltimore and did stories down there because all the shipping went there, and ships going the other way were the ones that did a lot of the Bay of Pigs weapons for, shipping weapons down to Florida for staging that. So I just love it when we're smarter, and we always win when we're smarter because it keeps pushing them in the corners to out themselves. What's happening right now is the deep state and the opium trade in particular is outing themselves. Everyone said Club K was conspiracy theory. Remember that? That was only a year ago. People were saying you'll never see that in America. Right?
I think I've seen it in America. I mean, we've looked at satellite photographs where, well, why is that blue container there? That kind of thing is not surprising to me, but it is to the people that are still following, the narrative, as Cheryl Atkinson names it, the Big Brother's truth factory.
Well, Mike Adams, I have all these people on the conservative right coming to me and saying, hey, have you heard this story about there's this thing that's inside a container ship? It's called Club K.
Yeah, no, what is it? It's at least 2 years you've been reporting on it.
Oh, yeah. And I've gone, how many times have I gone down to that port, Port Canaveral? I mean, and so it's comical to me. And how do you know so much about this? And I'm like, well, I did a lot of stories on this. So what I'm saying, John, is we forced the hand of these deep state characters. We said it was fourth psychological operations. Every day that goes by, we get more information, more detail. Mm-hmm. We talked about Fort Belvoir having a breakout of coronavirus in October of 2019. We now have the 29th Infantry in Washington, D.C., every soldier from Fort Belvoir, and they're asking them questions. Why are they taking lie detector tests for all the soldiers in Washington, D.C. right now? Why are they asking them coronavirus questions? Why are they asking them coronavirus questions for 2019 when it supposedly hadn't reached the United States? Why are they asking them pneumonia questions? If they ever had pneumonia-like symptoms, why are they asking those questions?
Have you seen the questions?
Why are they asking? I know it can be verified.
Okay.
Why are they?
I'm not challenging. I just
no. Yeah. So there's a sources thing here that you have to fight all the time. But I'm just saying, why are they asking those questions, right? If they're just there to defend the Capitol for Nancy Pelosi. I'm telling you, this is a loyalty test. They're putting together their own secret team. They're going to drum these people out of Fort Belvoir that don't answer the questions right. If you have, I'm going to just leave it right there. But we have 29,000 people, John. Somebody is going to, this story will come out.
There's, according to the latest I read, is 65,000 troops in the nation's capital now in D.C.
Eddie was there yesterday, so I'm going to let him step in here for a second and talk about it. And you were actually walking all around, so why don't you jump in here really quick?
All right, Addie Attican, and Addie, like everyone else, has had his station
as National
purged.
Guard have arrived here in downtown.
So we're urging everyone to subscribe to Addie's new YouTube page. And good morning, Addie. And
good morning, John.
Give us the name of your new YouTube page so everyone can get on there right away.
Sure. So I'm actually just directing people to my Twitter now. One Addie Ads, ONEADDYADDS, because my link tree is in the bio of my Twitter profile, which contains all the links to socials and YouTube platforms, donation and sponsorship links alike. So I'll just direct people to my Twitter because it seems to be the steadiest, at least so far for me personally, in terms of getting censored.
Me too.
I do get, I'm still on Facebook. I've gotten a little bit of kind of flagging there, but Twitter's been definitely the most open for me. So I'll just direct people there. So that's ONEADDYADDS. And as George was saying, I was just at the Capitol. I actually think it was the day before yesterday, if today's Tuesday. So I was there Sunday, and George recommended that I don't return, even though I kind of wanted to. Certainly not for the inauguration. I think that would be a huge mistake. And I wanted to add to that the reason that I think they added this basic military occupation of D.C. was to ensure that Trump supporters or any supporters didn't have a reason to go, because if it was open to the citizenry, I think it would be a very pitiful turnout for Joe Biden. And just commenting too, John, on what you were saying about Trump as well, it may be the right decision, although we don't realize it right now, for Trump to fold his cards. I think of the octopus metaphor of the deep state that Charlie Robinson likes to use with his book, The Octopus of Global Control, whereby an octopus will do what is best for its survival, whether that's fight or flee or hide as well. So the deep state's very good at that. But I think likewise with regards to what George was saying, we have to be very smart about that too. And we don't know what Trump is thinking. We don't know what he is going through. We don't know if his family has been threatened. We don't know if his brother's death was a warning last year. I think it was right before the election. So there's a lot we don't know about what is going on in Donald Trump's head as well. There's that as well. Somebody sent me a T-shirt last week that said as well on it, because I say it all the time. So now I've noticed every time I say that. But so it may be the right decision, is what I'm trying to say, with Trump kind of folding his cards, which it seems to be the case at this moment in time. I'm not really sure. I just try to channel that negative energy to maintain a high work rate, because I just get kind of anxious if I'm not progressing forward. So yeah, I mean, I'm still open to getting my YouTube channel up, but just trying to work on that robustness. It's unfortunate when you have so many different of these video platforms, and we were talking about like Inked Social too before the broadcast with George, because people only have so much time in the day. They're not going to be able to check every single one of them every single day, certainly. And that's to say the least. So it's kind of finding out which ones are going to be the winners in 5 years or so. But just thinking on a short-term basis, it's definitely hard to be cheery right now, I would say, John, with everything that's been going on. But I just try to channel that energy into taking action, because it's really all about taking action. George was teaching me about Steve Jobs a few weeks ago, and it reminded me of, and just thinking big, and it reminded me of an interview I saw with him where he's talking about Bill Hewlett and how he got a job working for Bill Hewlett, and all he did was pick up the phone and type his number in, because he was still in the phone book, and Hewlett picked up the phone and gave him a job that summer. And his point was, you have to take action, and I think that's important. It's taking positive actions, small steps in the right direction. But it is certainly frustrating, John, I would say, the state of things as they are. I had someone who I'm related to send me a message on Facebook saying the whole family knows what you've become. That was the message. The whole family knows what you've become. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can kind of tell where they're coming from there, or at least that particular person, that individual. So yeah, it's not, we've had, I think, happier times in our country. I think it'd be safe to say. But thank you, John, for having me on your show.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And I did not go down to Washington D.C., but you've been down there multiple times on this journey. And I'm sure that once it's safe, we'll all want to go back, if they let us. I'm sorry, Addie. I'm having a bit of a hard day, because I wake up and I realize, this is real. And so many people in this country do not understand at all, what's really going on. And many of them are old friends of mine for decades. Like your family. I mean, today on Twitter, I put up just a thing saying I thank all the patriots that came to answer the president's call, and that you took the risk, and now the people that the hooligans are now getting away scot-free and blaming you, the good people, the people that patriotically showed up because the president said to show up. And now, but I just say, God bless you all and God bless America. And one person posted, this person is losing his mind and should be disbarred. And I instinctively just blocked that person because I don't need that negativity. But at the same time, these things do keep, they're at it. They're not going to live and let live. They're not going to practice Dr. Martin Luther King's, only love can conquer hate. They're going to hate, and they're going to hate violently and viciously. And I'm really, really concerned about these re-education camps and the fact that, how many million people came to Washington and what did they get? They didn't even get a lousy T-shirt, but they did get doxxed.
Yeah. And I saw Brett Weinstein tweet about it. He basically condemned the mainstream media for making all patriots who were present there that day look like domestic terrorists or white nationalists. And somebody else also made the prediction that with this Biden election, there's going to be the school shootings return, and then there's going to be an uptick in domestic terrorism as well, which just played in. And we can't forget the Nashville attack either on Christmas Day that just provided a good kind of bedding for pushing forward for more security at the national and local levels as well. And no better example of that than this current occupation of our nation's capital. But I was also talking about with Ellen, who's also here at the charrette, and she was saying how it seems like a lot of foreigners actually know what's going on in our country in the United States better than a lot of Americans do. Excuse me. And I actually noticed something similar too when I was traveling abroad for the first time in Europe. A lot of the young people would ask me political questions that I necessarily did not know, nor was I at the time particularly interested in. But that was something I noticed too, was even people my age and around there. And this is, I think, almost 3 years ago now, 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. They would ask me questions about the political situation, which I found interesting because it certainly seemed like people at that age level were much more interested than Americans here. But I think Americans don't realize just how powerful the demographic of the American taxpayer is. I think there's an argument to be made for the American taxpayer being the most powerful demographic in the world, with how it's built and used to finance all of the deep state's really nefarious activities. And the fun and games of the CIA, as some people call it as well.
Yeah, I wonder about that tax base, though. What I see is they are gradually making our basic incomes smaller and less significant in the big picture. If they can finance their operations off the books, then there comes a time that they don't really need it, even as taxpayers anymore. But that is one of the things that we can do. We can organize a taxpayer revolt or something like that. But people that take up that 16th Amendment question often end up in bad shape, because they will go after you if you challenge the 16th Amendment. So I do, what can you do? You've got, most of the people that have jobs have got the withholding tax, and that's not something you can easily get around. So, but what you're saying is that because we are the economy, the biggest economy in the world, and this is what's happening, is that our economy is getting drained while other economies are getting built up, economies that are more easily controlled from the top, and our tax dollars are starting to look less and less powerful to me. Although I agree with you that, it is one thing to keep our hope up. But a lot of times I think people just think, well, they need us, they need us because we're the workers. They need us to pay the taxes. They need us to invest in the pension plans. I I am starting to question how much they really need us, and more like they just want to manage us, use us like sheep,
Yeah, I agree. And
so that's what bothers me. I'm sorry, I'm really down this morning. I wanted to try to perk up. Maybe we need to get George back up here because he's usually got something to cheer me up with.
I just wanted to comment on this video that Andy's showing before I hand it off to George here. So the fencing went along Independence and then it stopped perpendicularly at 3rd Street, northwest side of the Capitol was a side that I was on. And I didn't end up going really any further or to any other quadrant, but that particular sector was that northwest quadrant. And they all had, as far as I could tell, the National Guardsmen M4 carbines that I could identify. However, none of the magazines were in the assault rifles themselves. That doesn't necessarily mean they didn't have a round chambered, but I think that was something people wanted me to follow up on with regards to the weapons the National Guardsmen were carrying. I also saw transit policemen, just one transit policeman on one of the stations, and DC police as well. But I will hand it off to George.
Well, while you're changing, I'll make the comment that this scene that you're seeing on the right is the National Air and Space Museum. And you're looking at a fence that's erected so that you can't get on to Independence Avenue. And that's the green line there, I think, or maybe the red one is showing it, but it's a huge area that they've cordoned off. And you know what occurred to me, George? How different it would be if instead of inaugurating Joseph Biden, they were inaugurating Donald Trump for the second term. If that was happening, there'd be troops there, there'd be Secret Service, there'd be snipers, there'd be protective people, but they wouldn't be out in the open occupying the city like an occupying army. Oh, there's Deborah. And the difference would be that people would be going in and out of the the National Air and Space Museum. That's the Hirshhorn. They'd be in and out of the Hirshhorn. They'd be going to the American Indian Museum, which is a wonderful attraction for many, many people. And I know that all of the mall would be open, and the Smithsonian and all the glorious cultural achievements of our country would be displayed, and people would celebrate America. But instead, we have a lockdown. We have 8-foot fences, and it really tears me up, George. I mean, really.
Yeah, John, this is your hometown, and so that's why this is especially heartrending, I think, for you. But we, one of the reasons I brought Addie over today was to show the future. These are going to be the great new journalists of our time, and we started, with Addie and Andy here. Sleeping on a couch, in Michigan, and, then sleeping in bus stations. That was the promotion they got to get the footage, right? So, and then we're talking about going and starting our own social media platform with, that Kirsten started down in Florida with Ink Social, and we're working with Peter Duke, who's rewriting. Because WordPress has kicked off Conservative Treehouse and replatforming Conservative Treehouse. And we have the Trumps out there talking about buying up free speech platforms right now. So you have to, look at this as, as emotionally impactful as this is, what's the countermeasure to this? And the countermeasure to this, I think, is journalism. And it's free speech and citizen journalism. It's what you're doing, John, and it's what I'm doing, and it's what Addie's doing. And we want to take this opportunity to invite people from all over America. There's going to be some vetting, obviously, and we don't want to train a bunch of BLM provocateurs, but to go to Michigan and be an intern, go through the program that Addie went through and Andy went through. Become a citizen journalist. We'll show you how to do it, and you go as far as you want. There's 2 tracks. One's a technical track If you want to go toward the programming, do user interface to start with, and moving into JavaScript, we get you all the way into the deep bowels of the technology, or go on the creative side, the content side, video editing and so forth. This is all in order, sort of creating a university and a research institute to make sure that these dark forces don't win. And John, I know they've planned every way possible. There's no way to win this with the Second Amendment. There's no way to win this. You have to go with the First Amendment. You have to be smarter with the First Amendment, because the Second Amendment is not a solution.
No, I didn't understand, maybe a few days ago when you posed the question of First Amendment versus Second Amendment. I think of them as both great amendments. And but you're saying Second Amendment as an active verb, and I don't see it that way. Apparently some people use it as a kind of just a shorthand for saying, well, we're going to have to use our rights under the Second Amendment. No, I'm absolutely opposed to that. I love the Second Amendment. I think we need a well-regulated militia for the security of our free state. I think that's axiomatic. It says so right there in the instruction book. And if you don't read the instructions, you're liable to put the thing together wrong. So read the Second Amendment, but don't think of it as something that's an active thing. Just understand that we should be connected to each other. We should have meetings. We should have correspondence. We should have lines of communication. And, we may need to set up things like a committee of correspondence from one state to another, like they did in 1774 and 5, to stay in touch. But no, nothing of any type of violent action. I'm absolutely with you. I'm not a gun owner. I do not believe in that as any type of a solution.
Yeah, and John, I think you drew a great distinction when you talked about the militias. And if you're not training together regularly, then it's worth nothing. I know the National Guard does this, but look at the National Guard that's been called out is just the Navy. And it's drawn from 50 states. These are the loyalists. These are the loyalists to the deep state. And they're doing lie detector tests, you're going to find in time right now to do their loyalty checking right now. This is the beginnings of this is what happens after you burn the Reichstag.
Isn't that what?
Is you do the Night of the Long Knives. And that's what we're seeing right now in Washington, D.C.
I was just going to say, isn't that where Peter Strzok got his start?
Night of the Long Knives?
No, running the lie detector.
Oh yeah. And they've got a better one now, which is
everybody. Just days before the 59th presidential inauguration, Mayor Muriel Bowser laid out in simple terms.
Okay.
Oh,
well, there's Muriel Bowser, everyone's favorite, to take away the president's rights to move freely in his own city, in his own country. But John, the sort of lost my train of thought with that. Can you?
Well, here's what I would come back with, George. I have gained so much from this struggle, this struggle with the pen and the video camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I have gained you and Addie and Andy and everybody that's connected with what I would call the McDuff Lives movement, to keep alive the courage and the dedication to freedom that we're talking about. And without being pressed so hard on all sides, we wouldn't have come together the way we have. And I feel like we have a very, very strong bond here that's going to last us through.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the Committee on Correspondence. And folks, we couldn't bring you all the great graphics that Andy pulls up if, we didn't make a mistake every once in a while. So please be nice to Andy. But people are talking, I do think this is sort of a Committee of Correspondence, only it's a virtual one that goes all around the world that we're doing. And we're creating this institute in Michigan, in Temperance, right there on the Ohio-Michigan border. People are talking about the declassification of the Strzok document, 673 pages. And what you're going to find, and just so people You know, I hate things when they're presented as this shows you that declassification is coming. It's basically one interview between Bruce Orr talking about how he's known Steele for 10 years, and he's worked on these terrorist committees for 10 years. And that's the real juice of the 673 pages. The last 12% of the JFK documents is still classified. It was 65 years ago, or maybe not 65, but a long time ago. It's 57 or 58 years ago. Why are those still classified? Trump, they are not letting him declassify all the things he wants to classify. Brennan said Trump is the biggest danger to us now as a lame duck after we've done this election operation than he ever was, because he has nothing to lose. He can go out and declassify all this stuff. So they put key people in key positions. Kash Patel went over to the White House. Chris Miller went over to run Secretary of Defense. They put in, trying to remember, Ezra Cohen Watnick. They're going to let people do a certain amount, you know, just as a token. But this declassification was a token. It was a drop in the bucket to what he could declassify, and he didn't. The Libya papers, Syria papers, Sudan, Syria, the negotiations for Iran, all these things, nothing has been declassified. And so people are saying, oh, this is a great declassification. No, it has not happened. It was just one interview of Bruce Orr saying he's known Chris Steele for 10 years. That's the juice that's in that 673-page document.
And that part of it, that is also part of what's weighing me down, is because I'm coming to the realization that there's not going to be enough of a disclosure of anything that we could actually dig into the government records of my dad's career. And I had been so hoping that Trump was going to open up all the vaults and you know, let us go and pull out those file cabinets that are still hidden somewhere and see exactly what my dad did. But they're not going to let us, George. It's quite clear.
You know, John, I do want to give people hope in the sense that when we do come up with putting the intelligence mosaic together and we put something out there saying, you know, Oswald could have been a plant into the Bay of Pigs, we get other imitators that immediately take what we talk about and then run with it. Mm-hmm. There's this guy named the Dark Journalist. Addie started calling me the Dark Journal a while back. And he's got this new thing out that says Oswald was put in by the FBI and into David Ferry's gun running and training operation up there in Pontchartrain. And Lee Harvey Oswald was the guy. So now,
yeah, that's confirmation in a way, or is it just, you know, kind of him taking your stuff and repackaging? I don't know, George. I'm Dark Journalist, been around a long time, and although I don't watch him, I don't have any reason, you know, that I don't watch him. I kind of don't like his style. You know, it's kind of like eerie, creepy, a little bit of, you know, too much black and white contrast. I like you, but I would never call you dark. I think you keep your the lightness in your heart, George, somehow. I don't know how you do it. I think I've betrayed a little bit of heavy heart myself today, but God bless you, George. You've always been able to lift my spirits when I needed it.
Yeah. And well, I think this might, because, you know, one of the things I enjoyed doing with the group here, we had about 15 journalists down here that we've had at the house next to two houses for about 3 weeks. And just pulling the thread out that Garrison had so that people could see that Garrison had this same theory that Oswald was planted into this David Ferry gun running Bay of Pigs group. And remember, Bobby Kennedy with the special group for Cuba, along with Maxwell Taylor's trying to get to the root of who did Bay of Pigs. So an FBI infiltrator being sent in by Department of Justice would make perfect sense. And McDuff would, of course, with his background at the Russia desk at Washington Field Office, his background working with Russian defectors, is the fact we know he did the investigation of Ruby and Oswald. All those things point him being in the loop here. Also, the Nosenko case about Oswald also kind of relates to this. Now, what Dark Journalist added was kind of like a cherry on top of the sundae. He said that Robert Kennedy, the reason why he had not resisted the Warren Commission when he knew it was a cover-up was because Robert Kennedy was the one who had signed off putting Oswald into David Ferry's operation. And then knowing that he was being blamed for
Good afternoon, everybody.
Just days before the 59th presidential inauguration.
All right.
Yeah, I think Muriel Bowser wants to get in the middle of this conversation, but we're back on the Kennedy assassination, Muriel. Just cool your jets a little bit. You're going to be able to disrupt as soon as we end the show. But I just think that would be it does make sense. It is an explanation. And this is what I'm saying about working theory. It does allow you to go,
yeah.
What if Bobby Kennedy had signed off and then it turned out that he was blamed for the murder? Then that would shut Bobby Kennedy up because it was like, no, the guy you put in there, dummy, was the one who shot him. Right. And so I think we don't know. I need to see documents, before
I do too.
Believe that one. But it is interesting. It's one of those mind benders where you go, maybe Garrison knew that, because here's my only reason for considering it is Garrison leaves the case for 3 years and something regenders the case. Oh, $99. Somebody gave you $99, John.
Hey, that's great. That'll be very useful to us. Thank you so much, Papa Coin.
Papa Coin. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
So I guess I should keep talking about this.
Well, we're getting to the top of the hour, George, and you know me. I do like to kind of cut it off after an hour.
I'll just finish with this. There's in the movie, in the JFK movie, and maybe we'll do a deconstruction of the JFK movie with the metadata. But he does visit Senator Russell, and this is in '67, and this is what kicks off the investigation again, and this is what kicks off the Zapruder film being released, and this is what kicks off. I remember I was really into this when I was 10, 12 years old. I saw Mark Lane when I was 12 years old. But this is what then launched all the investigation. The House Committee on Assassinations was Jim Garrison going back to Washington. Now, who is he talking when he goes back to Washington that convinces him to restart the case? I mean, just something for people to consider. Just something to consider.
It's always interesting, George, and I always follow whatever leads you have. I can't think of a time you've been wrong lately. I think your instincts are amazing. Well, Andy, thanks very much for a great job this morning, helping everybody see the background behind what we're talking about by supplying some really great graphics, text, as well as video. I want to thank Addy Adikin for being with us. Addy Ads, hit him up on Twitter and check out all of his different productions. George Webb, always just such a thrill, and thank you so much for being here and cheering me up this morning, the day before tomorrow.
And thank you, Mary Ellen Sudol, for your super chat for John. John has really worked his tail off, and he's employed all the folks we had in getting these rooms cleaned out and processing all this information. And I just really want to say thank you, John, for all. You might see him a little down today, but he's been working his butt off.
You guys are going to buy us some paint we're going to paint the walls of the other studio. It's we're going to get some nice, we need to get a carpet in here, and you all have done it. This is working. It's taking off. Excuse me if I'm a little skittish about talking about some of the YouTube buzzwords, but I think it's worth it to just, protect the base, protect the what we're building here, because everybody in this room knows it is tough to rebuild if you get knocked out. So, and Ellen, by the way, George, just to let you know, our fellow researcher Ellen is taking on the David Ferry book by Judy Very Baker. So Judith Very Baker's latest book is a big, thick one about David Ferry. So she's going to digest that for us. That'll be interesting.
Oh, is Mary Ellen the one that has your JFK book up on Brighteon? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, different person.
A different person.
I'm talking about Ellen, our co-researcher at the house.
I didn't realize Mary was the first name. Okay, yeah.
No.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, it's not Mary.
Okay. I'm sorry.
We better get out of here. We're getting too confused. All right.
Thanks,
everybody. Let's let the Ospreys say goodnight.